Hello and welcome to Screenshots, a study on the life of Jesus through the lens of Mark. We are on lesson 11 and we are picking up at Mark 7. It begins, the Pharisees and some of the teachers of the law who had come from Jerusalem gathered around Jesus and saw some of the disciples eating food with hands that were defiled, that is, unwashed. Now, in parentheses, Mark tells us, the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they give their hands a ceremonial washing, holding to the tradition of the elders. When they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash, and they observe many other traditions, such as the washing of cups, pitchers, and kettles. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. We see the same things that we've been seeing all throughout the book of Mark. Here, the Pharisees and the teachers of the law have left Jerusalem and come to spy on Jesus. And why? Because they're hoping to catch him doing something wrong, which here they did. Now, we've talked about this before, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but Jesus kept all of his Father's laws. What he did not keep is the extra laws that the Pharisees and their ancestors had added to the law. So notice Mark is telling us that the teachers of the law and the Pharisees observed many other traditions, not laws, traditions. Now, some of you understand this just a little bit more than others because some of your families have traditions that you know better than to break. Comes to holiday time, and you know that grandma expects everybody over to her house on Christmas Eve. That's just the way this family works. You will be there. There's no excuses. I don't care if you're having a baby. I don't care what is going on. It's grandma's house on Christmas Eve. We have ham at Easter, or we have lasagna at Easter, or whatever. Some of you know you dare not cross the line with traditions. And yet, traditions are just that. They are habits that we've started, that we've carried on. I now am at the point in my life where two of my children are married, another is dating someone, and I love when new people come into our house when they're dating one of my children, because you have this very, very small window of time when they see things and they go, why do you do that? And they give you a chance to explain. And in the explanation, you realize, why do we do this? Why is this so crazy? What are we thinking when we do this? And so I am one of those people that I like change. I am not stuck on a whole lot of things except going to church and doing family devotions. I do enjoy doing that every night. But the point being, look, there are rules that God set, and then there's a whole lot of gray area. Your family probably doesn't do things the same way as another family at church and another family at school. You have different times that you eat, different times that you put your kids to bed, different ideas about how many activities they should be in, different ideas about if music is necessary or how involved you're going to be at church. So many things are unique to your family. And so you have rules that work in your house because your family has these activities, and you as parents work in different situations, and we have different rules. And that's just the way it is. And it's not a matter of being a Pharisee or a teacher of the law who was constantly looking at everybody else going, well, why? That's wrong because I'm right, but you're wrong. This is the way you should do it. And it is so, so easy. If you are a person who is currently raising children, it is so easy to look at them and either find fault because, that's going to come back to bite them someday. They're going to learn putting their kids to bed that late. Ooh, what are they thinking? Just wait until. But you're also going to learn that as your children get older, they're going to question a lot of the rules you had. And so, at least for me, as my children have gotten older, I have learned to be very humble about all this and to explain to my children, look, the reason we did this is because your dad was working nights and I was one person and I worked with what I had. When you have a family, please with my blessing, make new rules that work for you. That's your deal. That's between you and God. So don't fall into those ditches of judging other people or feeling like you're not good enough because your rules don't measure up to somebody else or vice versa. So the Pharisees and the teachers of law asked Jesus, "Why don't your disciples live according to the tradition of the elders instead of eating their food with defiled hands?" He replied, "Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites, as it is written, 'These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules.'" Now, if anybody understood this, Jesus did, because he could see into their hearts. He could see exactly what the Pharisees and the teachers of the law were thinking. You have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to human traditions. Now, I'm just going to stop quickly to remind us that with the 10 Commandments, the first 3 are ways that we can love and honor God. And the last 7 are ways that we can love and honor our neighbor. So it's not so much that the commandments are keeping us from doing things. They're really about showing love to others. When it says to honor your father and mother, it's about how we can show love to other people. When it says do not kill, that's about honoring our neighbor's body. Do not steal from them. Do not give false testimony. Do not talk about them behind their back. Those are all about how we can honor and love our neighbor, the people that we live with, that we live around. And the first 3 are about really showing how we can love God. When we get so that we are just about keeping rules and making people miserable, and you're not doing this enough, we've lost the heart of the law, which is to love God and to love our neighbors. And that's what had happened with the Pharisees and the teachers of the law. He continued, "You have a fine way of setting aside the commands of God in order to observe your traditions. For Moses said, 'Honor your father and mother,' and anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. But you say that if anyone declares that what might have been used to help their father or mother is korban, that is devoted to God, then you no longer let them do anything for their father or mother. Thus you nullify the word of God by your tradition that you have handed down, and you do many things like that." Jesus is showing, look, you have totally gone off track. Instead of loving God and loving your neighbor, you and your rules are causing people to completely nullify the laws that God put in place. Instead of loving God and loving your neighbor, you're ignoring your parents. You are not showing love to your parents, and you think that you are righteous in doing so. Totally off base. Again, Jesus called the crowd to him and said, "Listen to me, everyone, and understand this. Nothing outside a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it is what comes out of a person that defiles them." After he had left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples asked him about this parable. "Are you so dull?" he asked. "Don't you see that nothing that enters a person from the outside can defile them? For it doesn't go into their heart, but into their stomach and out of their body." In saying this, Jesus declared all foods clean. He went on, "What comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come: sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside and defile a person." Okay, if I was doing this section of scripture as my own Bible study, I would take my journal and I would write all these words down that we just went through. What are the evil thoughts? Where do they come from? They come from sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed. I would write all those down. I would look all the definitions down. I would look them up on my phone. I would just write malice definition, lewdness definition. I would write them all down. And then I would go through each of them and I would ask God to show me where I might be stumbling into these sins. So for instance, I'm just going to do a few of these. What is greed? Selfish desires to keep everything for yourself. It's the opposite of being generous. So if I'm going to think about greed, I'm going to think about not just material possessions. If I'm being greedy to use all my money only on myself, I'm going to think about time. Am I greedy with my time and not willing to be generous, to help other people, to be kind, to spend time with other people? Lord, what people, what group, where else would you rather I put my time? If there are people that I'm neglecting, show me. If I'm being greedy in some other way, if I'm being greedy with my material possessions or not giving enough to a certain place, just show me. I want to know where that's at. One more thing. Envy is resentful longing for what someone else has. So if I constantly am looking over at other people and, oh, why did they get that? And why did they get that? And oh my, why did they get that? You know what I'm not doing? I am not looking at all the blessings that God is giving me. I am neglecting how wonderful God is being with me, and instead concentrating all my effort on what he's giving you. Not helpful. You can tell a lot, actually, by the way people respond to two things in your life. First, how do they respond when something good happens to you? Are they happy for you? Or are they unable to even talk to you? If they can't talk to you, if they're not happy for you, there's a good chance that there's resentment in their heart. And that doesn't mean the friendship is over. That just shows you something. But the other time that you can tell a lot about people and how they feel about you is when things don't go well in your life and how they respond to that. And if they're willing to come alongside you, or if they avoid you and are not there to offer encouragement, support, whatever. Okay, so before we move on, where are the bits of law in this section and the bits of gospel? Well, clearly the law is showing us our sin when we get the whole ideology of the law wrong. That the rules are not, when we think of rules as just, things that keep us from fun and stifle us and God's way of being mean, we've missed it. We totally miss it. And the law, of course, is also that we have screwed this up so many times. Even these little things, even things like greed, even in looking at other people and judging them for the rules they have. I think we can all relate. Man, I have fallen short. Okay, where's the gospel? Jesus was there. He was teaching his disciples. He was showing them a better way. The gospel is that we will never be perfect. Nowhere does Jesus demand that we get this down or we're not going to heaven. He came because we couldn't do that. So the whole idea is that we do not want to be like little Pharisees and little teachers of the law, but we're all going to fall our whole life long. And so the gospel is that Jesus paid for it. And I say this all the time, and I really do mean it. Even as I teach these things, it's never going to be about perfection. We point these things out. We do these things. Even I do these things in my journal because I want to honor God with my life. But God isn't standing around with a clipboard to see where I mess up and to tap me on the shoulder and say, seriously, you didn't get that right. God always meets us with his grace. And that's the beauty of a section of scripture like this, is that Jesus is teaching his disciples that the ways of the Pharisees was wrong, that they were putting a heavy yoke on the people, and Jesus never intended that. Okay, moving on. This is one of my favorite accounts in the Bible. There's many favorite accounts of mine, but this is definitely one of them. Mark gives a little abbreviated version. I do prefer a different version, but you get the gist of it. Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. Now, this is important. Tyre was a Gentile community, so it was out of Israel. And so Jesus, the commentators were saying, left because the crowds always followed him, because people were always asking him to do healings. And he also was being followed by the Pharisees and the teachers of the law. So if he wanted any time with his disciples, he had to leave and go into Gentile territory. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, yet he could not keep his presence a secret. And again, one of the commentators mentioned, with 13 people, that might be it. With all of his disciples and Jesus, people are going to notice. It's not like you can be totally incognito. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an impure spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Lord, she replied, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, for such a reply you may go. The demon has left your daughter. She went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone. Okay, the only reason I like one of the other accounts in one of the other gospels is that it shows how much she had to go through in order to get Jesus to answer her prayer. So the fact is that he didn't immediately address her. He just kept walking away from her. The disciples said that she should leave, send her away. She's bothering us. And then eventually he said, look, I didn't come for you. I came for the lost sheep of Israel. And that's when she said, yes, but even the dogs get the crumbs that fall from the table. As in, I get it. I am not one of the people that you came specifically for, but I don't need much. I just need a little tiny scrap. This word that Jesus used for dogs is the word for house pet. So he wasn't saying you're like some vicious, scroungy little dog that roams the streets. And he was saying, look, I can't take the food from the children's plates and give it to the dogs. And she said, you don't need to. Just give me a crumb, which reminds me of the woman who was healed from blood and how she was just trying to get to Jesus' garment. Just if I touch the edge of his cloak, I will be healed. Such faith. All right, where's our law and gospel in this? Well, I think most of us recognize that our prayer life is not as vibrant and robust as it could be. And there are times that we forget to pray, that Jesus is our last resort. There are also times that when we pray and pray and pray for something, we quit praying for something. We think, clearly he just doesn't want to give us that. So why keep praying? And yet this woman did not give up. She stayed and she continued with boldness to go to Jesus. I don't need much. I just need a little. It's not going to bother you. It's not going to take away from anybody else. I'm not going away. You know why I'm not going away? Because my daughter's got a demon in her and I have nowhere else to go. And that resonates with me. More and more and more in my life, the things that I come up against, I go to God and I say, I have nowhere else to go. No one else can help me with this. This seems impossible, which is why I'm coming to you. If I could do this on my own, I would have already done it. I wouldn't bother you, but I can't. And you can. And so I just want to remind you, as we read this and you're thinking, oh, yep, there too, man, I've failed. I'm not very good at this. The door is still open. God invites us to come into his presence. That's our gospel. God doesn't give us 3 strikes and you're out. Yep, that's right. You didn't come to me with that situation. You didn't come to me with that situation. So you know what? Now, not going to listen. He's always happy when we come to him, which I understand so much more now that I have older children. I do. Once your children leave the house and they go off and they establish their own homes, man, I love when my children come home. I love when they call. I love when I get to go to their houses. I love when they text. There's never a time that I'm like, oh, why are you texting me or calling me or showing up again? Never. When my children come to me, I am so happy to hear from them. That's your gospel. God loves you. He wants to hear from you. He wants to hear from you, even if it's the 800th time that you came to him with the same thing. Don't think for a minute that something isn't happening, that something isn't getting done. Now, I know I've mentioned this before, but it changed my life. When I was in my car just this last fall, just a couple months ago, on my way home from speaking, I was listening to the Bible on my radio in my car, and I came across Jesus telling his disciples about the man who goes to his neighbor's house in the middle of the night and asks for bread. And Jesus said, even though he will not get up and give you the bread because of friendship, because initially the man knocked and the other man said, go away. I'm in bed with my children. I don't care what you want. Just go away. Jesus continued, yet because of your shameless audacity, he will surely get up and give you as much as you need. And then in Luke 11, it goes on to say, so I say, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. Something will be given to you. Something is happening. You may not see it. You may not feel it. You may not understand it. When you are praying, heaven is moving. It may not be obvious to you. In the book of Daniel, when Daniel had an angel come and visit him, he said to him, Daniel, from the minute you started praying, from the moment you started praying, your prayers were heard, but I have been detained. Your prayers are heard. Keep praying. Keep praying for that prodigal. Keep praying for your marriage. Keep praying for those unbelievers in your life, that their hearts are open, that they become fertile soil for the seeds of the gospel. Keep praying, my friend. I had a friend who I loved dearly. She was a very faithful ministry partner. She came all the time to my Bible studies. When I had events at church, she was there. She was helping me set up. I gave her rides. I loved this woman. And I prayed for her because she had cancer. And she would go to treatments and she would go in remission, and then the cancer would come back, and then she would be in remission, and then the cancer would come back. And I prayed and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed that she would be healed completely, entirely, that the Lord would bless her with health. And the week that she went into the hospital, before she died, I was so angry with God because he wasn't answering my prayers the way I wanted them answered. And it was only after she died that I realized he did. He did. He gave her complete healing. He restored her completely, just not the way I wanted. I wanted my prayers answered, that she get total and complete healing on this side of eternity, but God answered them in a different way. Something is happening. Keep praying. Keep praying, and never assume that God isn't hearing you, doesn't understand. Oh man, he understands so much more than we do. And here's the thing. I can't remember exactly how many years that woman had cancer, but what I do know is God gave her many years in remission. He gave me many times that we had more time together. How dare I say he wasn't generous? He was so very generous. I would have always wanted more. It doesn't matter how many more times he gave me. The next time would have always been hard to say goodbye. So he was so very generous. We don't always turn to God in prayer, but the gospel is, man, the door is always open. Do not neglect prayer. Get together with other Christians. Text each other prayer requests. Remind each other that you're praying for each other. pray, 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 and pray some more. Okay, going on. Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon down to the Sea of Galilee and into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged Jesus to place his hand on him. I'm just going to stop for just a second to remind you that there was one other time that we heard that Jesus was in the vicinity of the Decapolis, and that was in Mark chapter 5 when he healed that demon-possessed man who had been in the tombs, walking among the tombs, and he had full of so many that he said, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And remember how after Jesus healed that man wanted to come with Jesus, and Jesus said, "No, go tell your family and your friends all that the Lord has done for you." And so the man did. Those people that day, because Jesus had sent the demons out into a herd of pigs, and the pigs went down into the water, and the townspeople all came out and they said, "Just leave us, go away. We don't want you here." Much like the people in Nazareth, they didn't want anything to do with Jesus. They might have been amazed at what he did, but they pushed him away. And yet here, these people are not pushing Jesus away right now. They are coming to him and they're sick. So that tells you that ministry that one man had was very effective. After he took him aside away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh said, "Ephphatha," which means be opened. At this, the man's ears were opened and his tongue was loosened and he began to speak plainly. Now think about this. The man could not talk and he could not hear. Jesus pulled him aside. He put his hands in his ears. He touched the man's tongue. He was telling him what he was about to do. How compassionate to bring him away from the crowd where this poor man probably didn't know what was going on. He didn't understand what all these people were doing. And yet here Jesus takes him just one-on-one, shows him his ears, his tongue. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. People were overwhelmed with amazement. "He has done everything well," they said. "He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak." These people were amazed and they were overwhelmed in a good way. Law, how often are we happy and grateful for all the things that God has done for us? Maybe he didn't make anybody in your family who couldn't hear. Maybe he didn't give them hearing or do a miracle as huge as this. But I think if we actually take the time to notice, we would see that God is doing stuff for us all the time. In fact, today in my reading, I was reading in Deuteronomy chapter 4. And this is Moses' sort of sermon to the children of Israel just before he dies. And he's saying, look back at the former things. See all that God has done. What other God anywhere has chosen a nation and been with them and shown them all these miraculous deeds? Moses says, look back and see. And that's such a good reminder for us. Open your eyes and see the goodness of God in your life. So the law is, man, we miss it so often, don't we? We take God for granted. We absolutely complain constantly that things aren't just perfect, even though we've got a pretty cushy life, even though God has revealed himself to us. God is so faithful to answer our prayers. We come to him time and time again with complaints. That's our law. But the gospel is, man, isn't it amazing that day after day after day after day, he meets us with his mercy and grace. He doesn't turn the faucet off because we forgot to thank him for all he did to us in the past. You've probably heard the same saying that I had that says, if you only today were to have the things you thank God for yesterday, how much would you have? Well, that might be a rude awakening for most of us. Would we have our house? Would we have our family? Would we have our faith? Oh man, Can you imagine? So let's be the people who are gracious, who are filled with gratitude, who don't complain, but continue to go to the Lord with our requests, knowing He's answering them in the best way possible, not just for us, but for everybody else. Let's remind each other constantly of how good God is and how much He has done for us. And let's be like that man who, when Jesus said, "No, I don't want you over there. I want you to just stay here and tell people about me." Let's be like that man who never misses an opportunity to tell people how good God has been to them. How awesome if wherever we go, no matter what our situation is, no matter if it's 2 days before a holiday or 10 days after, whether you're tired or energetic, whether nobody came home to see you or everybody came home to see you, no matter what, when you're out in public, when you're with people, whenever you get the opportunity, be the type of person who does not quickly turn to complaints, but rather who quickly comes to the conclusion that God has been very good to me. God has given me so much more than I deserve. He's He's a loving God. And you want a relationship with Him too, because He'll do the same for you. That's it for this time. I'll see you next time.